What's up, everybody? This is Steve Sterlacci. Today, we are looking at an awesome set of budget in-ear monitors that have honestly saved our life on a few occasions. And I think that every band or musician should have these on hand, either as your primary in-ear setup or at the very least as a solid backup. I'm going to share a couple of stories with you where these have actually saved our butts in pretty big spots. So for years, we have relied on these Xvive U4s, and this is the older model. And these have been so rock solid reliable for us, considering that they only operate on a 2.4 Wi-Fi. But my friends from Sweetwater and Xvive just hooked us up with the upgraded version, and I wanted to showcase how great these are and what they can do. So this is now the 5.8G, mostly essentially the same product, but this is now upgraded to 5.8G Wi-Fi, which is now a completely different level of connectivity and flexibility when it comes to using these. So basically what you have here, and by the way, this is the carrying case. It doesn't come with the carrying case, but we opted for the carrying case because we take these as our backups and actually wind up using these as primary in-ear monitors when we tour in Europe. So quick background story about us. We tour as an independent act and we do a lot overseas. So when we fly overseas, we don't bring our big refrigerator rack with our big fancy expensive in-ear monitors in them. When we go over there, we try to travel as light as possible, bring the least amount of gear, and basically have our bare essentials of what we need to put on a show. Now, most of the time, we request backline from the venues, the festivals, whatever it is that we're playing. Not always does that happen. So many times we walk into situations where we kind of have to look at each other and we're like, oh crap, this isn't the monitoring situation that we requested, and the show must go on. So being that we are advocates that no matter what, we're going to wind up playing our show, we had to start kind of thinking on the fly. And actually a few years ago, we did a UK run, a tour of the UK through smaller clubs. And we had none of the backline people were like, yeah, we have in-ear monitors for you. And being that we have two singers and we're a completely silent stage, monitoring is a very big deal for us. And the singers need to hear their voices and we need to hear our instruments because we are a completely silent stage. So for the entire tour, we had nothing. They just literally said, okay, you could share a floor wedge in the front of the stage. And that's just not going to work for us. So that's where we first found these Xvive in-ear monitors. And those first model, the 2.4 model, we would have many dropouts and you basically couldn't leave the monitor. So you basically couldn't leave the receiver. So we used to run an XLR cable from the monitor sends to wherever we were on stage, drop it at our feet. And we had a great in-ear monitor setup with separate monitors. So you don't need a big fancy rack in-ear system when you're using these Xvives. They're awesome. And I mean, even with the smaller ones, we would always struggle because we couldn't move. But now that these are 5.8G, we've been using them in rehearsals and we're going to be taking them on the road with us as backups. And basically, how it works is you typically have a monitor send. The monitor console sends audio to the monitors. That's what a monitor send is, obviously. Self-explanatory there. It either goes to a floor wedge or it's going to go to this little tiny transmitter. So this transmitter is going to be your floor wedge essentially, or your what would be considered an in-ear monitor rack. So this tiny little thing, you could just either pop right into your monitor output, or you can run an XLR cable. This is how I would do it. I would always recommend that you take an XLR cable from your monitor send and just drop this behind you on the stage, and then that will transmit to your receiver pack, which is what is always going to stay on your belt. So this will clip to your belt. You'll have your in-ear monitors, your headphones, whatever it is. You don't need to have super expensive ones. Being that, I do this professionally, I have custom professional in-ear molds, but you don't need that with this. You could use any type of in-ear monitors. They even sell a pack that includes some earbuds, so you actually don't need anything else. And just some quick specs on this for you audio nerds here. It features high-res 24-bit 48K audio, a frequency response between 20 Hz and 20 kHz, a signal-to-noise ratio of 107 decibels, which is more volume than you'll ever need. And the sound quality is going to be better than CD quality and much better than MP3. So are you getting the most top-of-the-line, crystalline, clear audio? No, but are you getting something that's good enough to actually use professionally? Absolutely. I've honestly got no complaints over this. The only complaint I would say is that they're mono, and that's literally it. Other than that, it sounds great. It's a great solution to either gigging on a budget or for a backup unit. The other upgrades on this include a USB-C, which is much better. The old ones are the old school USB, which nobody has anymore. The internal battery will last you 5 hours. So basically you go to sound check, you plug them in, you let them charge up for the gig. You should be more than good to have these run for the entire show. And before we get out of here, I will share 2 more stories about how these little budget IEMs have saved our lives. We do a very big production theater show across the Northeast every year called Jessica Lynn's Very Merry Classic Christmas Show. And for that show, we have all the stops pulled. You know, we have a professional in-ear rack, professional dancers. We have the whole bit for that. Our first show, and for context, we are an independent act. We pack our own trailer. We have our own gear. We own everything, and we load and set up everything ourselves. So our first show, we drive 5 hours to Massachusetts. This is a true story. I'm not lying. And we get there, we set up everything. We're about ready to start sound checking. We've spent hours setting everything up. And we're like, all right, cool. Let's get ready to sound check. Who has the in-ear monitor packs? And we all look at each other and we're like, did you pack them? Did you pack them? Did you pack them? The rack of the in-ear receivers, so the body packs, we left our high-end body packs at home. And we were like, oh, shoot, what are we going to do? And it just so happened that we literally had these in our backpacks from the previous European tour. And we were like, holy crap, we have the Xvives. We can save the show. And again, like I said before, we ran our XLR cables from the monitor send, dropped these at our feet or kind of like a little bit off stage, close enough to where we weren't getting any interference. And the show went off without a hitch, which was unbelievable that we were able to pull that off. But it's a testament to that these are actually good enough to be used in a professional context. And one more war story here. We do a lot of things in remote parts of the world. We do things for the US government, kind of like cultural ambassador music trips. And one time we played a show where there was only one monitor mix, period. One monitor mix, nothing else. So now, being that there's 2 singers in the band, we're kind of like, the singers get the priority. The singers get the priority of the mix in this situation. So we were kind of like, what the hell do we do? And I had thought of the idea to take my floor modeler, which was at the time, I think it was my HX Stomp XL. And I was like, okay, well, I can do this. I took the headphones out of my modeler, my digital floor modeler, plugged this in onto the floor, and I put my guitar into this pack, into my left ear, and I had the band mix in my right ear. So I was able to make my way through the show where I could hear my guitar nice and loud because I had these on hand and I wasn't stuck with the same mix that everybody else had. I was still able to kind of now turn my guitar up in one side of my head and then hear the band in the other one. I know that that's a rare use case and a rare scenario, but it's just showing that having this Xvive unit on me at all times has saved my butt many times. So that is why every band needs these Xvive U45s, especially now that the 5.8G, these are going to be more at a professional level. The 5.8G, you're not going to have as many dropouts or any interference. Really looking forward to getting these out on the road. And thanks to Sweetwater and Xvives for sponsoring this video. And if you made it this far, I will see you in the next one.